Hello everyone, welcome back to another Ableton tutorial. Lovely to have you here. Big shout out Patreon crew, big shout out YouTube crew. Let's get stuck into it today. So what are we looking at today? Well, you just saw me doing a little flipping around with something. That's this. That's a Thea Beat Grabber little device rack that I made. That's not what we were looking at today, but Patreon members can download that as part of today's project. Patreon members can download the whole project. What we're looking at today is everything else you can hear. And the title of this video, Linear Programming using Ableton's Arpeggiator plugin. So, what is linear programming? And how are we going to explore it? Well, linear programming is a style of programming that really came about due to a constriction. It came about from cutting up drum loops on things like MPCs. And when you're slicing up drum loops, you can only ever play one sample at a time. So I'm going to press stop on this. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So I've got a drum loop here. It looks like a drum loop. It's one bar. And if I drag that into a simpler, so I just drag a simpler in here and I drag this in here and I go on slice mode, which is sort of how slice mode is replicating the idea of old MPC samplers. And I'm slicing it by, let's say, beat, and let's do it in 16th notes. Now, I can only ever play one of these 16th notes at a time when I'm in slice mode. If I turn on my keyboard monitoring here, I can press buttons here. I'm just pressing the buttons on my computer keyboard there. And no matter how many buttons I press at the same time, I can only ever play one slice of this sample, even if I've got this set to through mode here. So like when I press the button, it keeps playing all the way through. Even if I play more than one note, it jumps around the sample. It doesn't play more than one note at a time. So this sound was then integral to guys like Aphex Twin or Autechre, these kind of very cut up sample-based electronic music styles. It used to be done using very, very complicated sequences and programming and painstaking approaches. Of course, you can still do it like that, but we're going to look at a way to do it in a more sort of intuitive, generative, adaptable way using Ableton's drum rack. So I'm going to delete that drum sample. We don't need that anymore. And this is the drum rack that we're going to be looking at. And I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to delete the whole thing. And we're going to start from the start. That's what we usually do, right? So first things first, I'm actually going to record in some kind of stuff to play with. So I have here it's a guitar cable. It's just plugged straight into the sound card, and we get lots of these cool little crunchy sounds. So I'm going to make a new audio track. Let's come out of the way, all the way over here, please. I'm going to select the input, of course, input number 2. I'm just going to record some sounds. So here we go. Probably enough. Just your standard variety guitar cable static that we've heard a bunch of times before. Right, don't need you to be monitoring anymore. Now that's what we're going to use to sort of cut up and make a source sound. So the first thing I'm going to do is drop this into a simpler, new simpler, and we're going to see what each of these slices is going to sound like. So I'm going to cut according to slice mode. I'm going to come in and we're going to start at the start, and let's just play through and see what they sound like. That's quite. I'm going to put this on 0 so we can hear what's going on. 0. Yep, that's quite nice. Also quite nice. Yep. So I've gone through and I've checked all of these individual slices. We've got lots of lovely cool sounds. So what I'm going to do now is put this into a drum rack. So I'm going to bring in a new drum rack over here. I'm just going to drag and drop that onto the drum rack. And I'm going to put it on C2 for reasons that will become clear a little bit later on. So we can just drag this in here and drop that onto C2. Right, don't need that MIDI track anymore. That one's done. I'm going to come in and I'm going to make a MIDI clip here. and I'm going to make it, 1 bar long. I'm just going to put a note in there. That's C2. That's going to play our sample, and there we go. It's playing one in the middle here. Okay, so I'm going to fix that. I'm going to open up the rack options here. We can select the in-out options. So it's receiving note C2, and then it's playing note C3. So I want that to be C2, I think. Oh, and it's all the way down. I drag this up to C2. Now it's playing a sample in the middle. I'm going to go all the way down to C1. So there we go. So it's playing. So the note that's coming in on here is C2, but the C1. Come on, C1. Yep. And then it's now playing our first sample. So it's it's going to play all the way through. We're going to bring in a MIDI random, so that we're going to use this to change the note. I don't want it to be random. I actually want it to do it in order. So I'm going to set this to alternate, chance 100, and we're going to bump choices all the way up to 24. So now each time a note comes in, it's now going to play through these samples. Lovely. Like that one's a little bit off. Okay, now I'm going to bring in an arpeggiator, MIDI effects arpeggiator. So that's playing through all the samples. That's quite nice. I'm actually also going to bring in an OTT at the end here, the multi-dynamics over-the-top compression, because I think that's going to be really helpful for this sound. That's quite aggressive. Let's bring it down a little bit. Okay, so now we can also control the length of each of these samples using the gate here. Let's set this to 16. I'm not controlling the length because here we've got it set to trigger and not gate. There we go. So now I can control the length of the samples here. I can control how often they're being triggered here. Fun. All right, let's leave this on 16. Let's bring in a little bit of randomization on how long each of those samples is. Expression control random. This is a preset I made on Ableton expression control pedal because I use it plugin because I use it so much. So I'm going to map that to the gate here. Going to make it be bipolar. Maybe not quite so much. So we're now getting some fluctuation in the rack sound. Okay, so now I've got Ableton's Arpeggiator set to play up mode. So what this means is that we've experienced Arpeggiator before. If there's more than one MIDI note coming in, it's going to cycle between those two MIDI notes. So let's just show you what I mean by that. So if I bring in an operator here, and I'm going to put that on a different drum pad over here. Let's put that on D2. And if I now also put this note in, so now the arpeggiator is alternating between the two notes. So I'm going to bring in a kick, which is going to use Ableton's kick, and I'm now going to program. Let's make this 2 bars. Let's duplicate that. Duplicate, lovely. 2 bars. So I now have a kick thing down here. I'm at 150 BPM by the way today. If you're following along, so let's program in. Now we're not hearing these additional kicks. That's because where those kicks are falling in this particular cycle means that one of the upper notes is being played, in this case the glitchy note. So I'm going to change the arpeggiator here, re-trigger. We're going to turn re-trigger on, so each time a new note is triggered, it restarts this cycle. So now each time it plays this kick drum note here. Oh, and we don't need this one because that's confusing things. So each time a new MIDI note is received, it restarts this cycle from the bottom. So it's quite important that we have the arpeggiator style to be going from lowest to highest, because this is now going from lowest to highest on our drum pads. So I'm now going to bring in a snare drum into here as well. I'm going to use my snare drum rack that I made, my Neuro Snare generator. That made a tutorial about that, I think. Did I? Anyway, it's available for download on the Patreon. Yeah, so I'm going to now just program in a snare drum as well. Lovely. Let's randomize that snare drum sound a little bit. Let's open this up. Fun. Okay. So now, each time the snare drum hits, it's restarting the arpeggiator cycle. Each time the kick drum hits, it's restarting the arpeggiator cycle, which means it's only letting the low note through to begin with, which means that it's ducking out the glitchy notes, which means we have this linear programming approach coming on. Ooh, what happened there? Okay, so what I'm also going to do now, and what this now allows me to do, is bring in some notes that have a bit more element of chance to them. So like if I was to bring in this kind of a, and now I'm going to the chance down on those two kick drums. Let's do some more over here. Let's maybe duplicate this whole thing again, and maybe let's add in a couple of snares here that also have a chance, a not 100% chance. So this means that we can have a loop that is evolving and changing, but each time a new MIDI note is received, it's re-triggering this arpeggiator. I'm going to come in and make sure that plays both of those notes or none of those. So I'm going to select them both, right click, and group notes play one. I know that's just off the screen, but sorry, I want group notes play all, don't I? Yeah. So it's either going to play both or neither of these two MIDI notes. I kind of like what this is doing. Let's do a little bit more programming sound stuff on that glitchy thing. This is a glitchy thing in here. Let's actually maybe transpose it up a bit. That's kind of cool. I'm gonna bring in a raw plugin at the end of this. A little bit of distortion. Raw, you can come in actually before the OTT, because I think that what I want to do is, I'm going to double click that, minimize it. We're going to bring in another expression control with randoms all over it. I'm going to map this to the feedback amount. And I'm going to map this one to the feedback time here. I don't want it to be doing nearly so much. So now we're getting some cool, glitchy, randomy, distortion-y effects on these things. Right, I want to add some reverb, but I want to do this reverb inside the drum rack actually. So I've opened up my in-out, so I'm gonna also open up the returns here. And this now gives me some return channels inside the drum rack. So I'm just gonna drag a reverb in here. And now when I open up the sends here, we can see I can send sends to my return channel here. Oh, of course I want this reverb to be 100% wet because it's a return. Let's add a little bit of reverb. That's nice. Oh, come on, back. Maybe a little touch of these glitchy sounds. Right, I'm going to add a couple of other things to this loop, also using this drum rack. So I have a piano sample here. We're going to drag that into the drum rack. Let's rename that piano. Let's even call it piano 1. So it's 2 piano chords. Let's make you like that. Let's make another one, drag you over here. Let's rename it piano 2. And we're going to make that the second one of these 2 chords. And I'm going to put these on a choke group. So I'm going to select them both. I'm going to put them both out through choke group 1. This means that they're going to mute each other, so it's going to make it feel even more linear. So let's set this back to 16th notes. Oh, we are on 16th notes. I'm just going to program in. Ooh. So now we hear that those piano notes are of course re-triggering the. But I'm going to put this. They're re-triggering the arpeggiator. But let's bring the charts down. This is nice. Let's make the samples a bit shorter. So because of the way that we've got the arpeggiator working, we're sort of saying that the lower the MIDI note, the more priority that thing has. So whenever a kick drum is playing, it's stopping everything else from playing, and it's re-triggering the arpeggiator pattern. So things are going to be played in the order in which they are MIDI notified. I think I want to do actually something a bit not quite so random with the piano. Let's maybe do something a bit like this. Come on. Yeah. In here like this. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, nice. Let's make this a bit more again on the... Nice. Let's make this second sample shorter. In fact, let's put the second sample on gate. Ah, that's nice. Yeah, so now also being affected by how long this is. Alright, these piano samples can be a bit louder, I reckon. Let's turn you up. Maybe it's nice if they're also going a bit to the reverb. Yeah. Nice. There you go. Linear programming using Ableton's Arpeggiator. Of course, whatever sound you're using is this sort of main glitchy sound that I have in here. I of course recorded that static on my guitar lead, but whatever sound you're using is drastically going to change the way these loops feel. So if I was to drag a completely different sound into here, I think maybe we could put a drum loop in there and see what happens. Let's go to here. Let's go samples. Let's find a drum loop. I'm just gonna drag one in here. We get a completely different result. We could also put this down at. Could have a swing approach. So there we have quite a versatile, quite a usable, changeable, variable linear programming approach. Like I said, you don't have to do this using drum sounds and glitchy sounds. You could use it, you're adults, you can figure that out for yourselves. What I aim to do on this channel is to help you make music that sounds like you, not music that sounds like me. I would love to hear what the music that sounds like you sounds like. Send me stuff, tag me stuff. Please share it in the comments below. That's it for today. Thanks so much. Next time.